What's up, everyone? This is Wipeout. I know, thank you. I look good in my Jinx shirts, and you would too. So go down to jinx.com, look at all the awesome gamer clothing that they make, and order some nice things for yourself. Make sure to tell them that Wipeout sent you. Now, today I'm going to be reviewing the PSP Go. I was very apprehensive at first to purchase this system for two reasons. One, because of the price point. At $250, it's only $50 shy of a PS3, so it's a little steep to ask for that much for a portable system. And also, this system relies entirely on digital distribution for its games. As a game collector, that's a big downfall for me because I love to have physical copies of my games. But I decided to take the plunge, and I'm glad that I did, because this system has grown on me tremendously. The biggest difference between the PSP Go and previous versions of the PSP is its size. I have a PSP 2001 right here, and when I stack them up next to each other, you can see that the PSP Go is roughly 2/3 the size of previous versions of the PSP. That's a phenomenal difference, and what it translates to is that you're going to keep this with you every day and get daily usage out of it, which is a lot more than I can say about the previous versions of the PSP because I never carried my PSP with me on a daily basis like I do my PSP Go. So that is the biggest and most important difference between the PSP Go and previous versions. The screen slides up and is very satisfying to slide. It's nice and smooth, and the system, of course, is split in half when you have it open, so when you're playing it, it feels very thin in your hands, which is very nice. The screen is a little bit smaller since the system is a little bit smaller, but it's not that much smaller. You're not going to be squinting trying to read anything. It's still an excellent size for the screen. And since it's smaller, the pixels are closer together, so you get a much more solid looking image. The color is also far superior on the PSP Go. Even in the menu of the XMB, there's an option for a standard or wide color range. The system defaults to wide, and when you set it back to standard, it resembles the picture quality of the older PSPs, but you'll have it set to wide and you'll notice the difference immediately. Also, the screen has a much better refresh rate. Games like Gran Turismo and Wipeout look beautiful in motion on the PSP Go. Dark colors, which left a trail before on older screens, don't leave any motion blur or ghosting on the PSP Go. The screen is very fast and it looks wonderful. The D-pad and the face buttons have a tactile feel, and it's very nice when you press them down because you get a nice clicking action that lets you know that you've depressed the button. And the buttons cannot be depressed without them activating. So, for instance, in Wipeout, when you're trying to do a barrel roll with quick left, right, left action, you're going to execute the barrel roll flawlessly every time. Where on previous PSPs, you could press the D-pad very slightly and have the button go down but not actually activate. Also, the analog stick is a lot nicer. The resistance is improved, and you can feel much more easily how far you're pressing the analog stick because there's a ridge around the range of motion. The battery is a trade-off from older versions of the PSP. It's non-replaceable, so you can't have two batteries that you swap out, one that you play while the other is charging, and if the battery ever fails on you, you'll have to have the system serviced. They've also removed the battery life indicator from the XMB that gives you an exact measure of battery life in hours and minutes. The system supports Bluetooth, so you'll want to use a Bluetooth mic. Possibly if you have a Bluetooth mic for your PS3, you'll use that for your recordings and voice chat on the PSP Go. I wouldn't recommend using the internal mic because the internal mic picks up a very high-pitched squealing that the backlight of the screen makes. So if you want a clean recording, say in Beaterator, from the internal mic, you'll have to turn the screen off in order to get a clean recording. They probably should have omitted that from the system entirely due to that downfall. Since it supports Bluetooth, that means you can also use a PS3 controller with the PSP Go. And this is a huge advantage because after you've been playing your PSP Go while you're out during the day, you come home and you want to continue playing, you can put your PSP on the cradle, pick up a PS3 controller, use the video out cable, and play it as if it was a home console. That is an amazing feature and a huge bonus to the PSP Go's usability. That setup will actually cost you a fair amount because you'll need, of course, the PSP Go, which is $250. You'll need a PlayStation 3 controller, which you may already have, but that's another $55. You'll need the video out cable, which is $30. You'll need the cradle, which is about $20 or $30. And you'll need a power supply from an older PSP model, which will run you another $30. So that setup is actually more expensive than the PS3, but is a really cool setup if you can afford to do. Older PSPs use a mini USB cable, and the mini USB cable is widely available for many devices, and most people have one of these laying around their home. So with an older PSP, it's easy to come across one of these cables. If somebody has a digital camera or a PS3, you're going to have that cable and it's going to make file sharing with that person easy. Now on the PSP Go, you have a proprietary cable that only the PSP Go uses. No one will have one of these in their homes unless they themselves own a PSP Go, or you are carrying this with you. Now carrying this with you is going to subtract from the portability of the system. However, this cable is actually part of the power supply, so if you're carrying the power supply with you, you will have this cable on you. Another huge advantage of the PSP Go is the pause game, resume game function, which works like a save state for your game software. It really adds to the portability of the system, because if you're playing a game and you need to stop playing or go back to the XMB of the PSP and maybe surf the web or do something else, you can exit the game and pick up where you left off very, very quickly. And it's useful for more than just that. Also, even if you're using the game's internal save function, you can jump back into the game far quicker with the resume game function than you can simply by just launching the game as you normally would. Resuming the game brings you back very, very quickly, and you won't have to go through all the splash screens and developer screens and stuff that you would have to go through normally. As you can see, I'm already back in the game here. I've only started this one maybe 3 seconds later. But it's going to take forever to get into the game on the PSP 2000. I'm going to have to sit here and, watch the Polyphony digital screen and all kinds of warnings and stuff, so you can get back into your game far quicker with the pause game, resume game function. When you pause the game too, it only takes about 10 seconds and you'll be back to the XMB. It's not quite as useful as having an in-game XMB, but it's definitely an advantage to the system that should not be taken for granted. There we go, and I'm already back at the XMB. Now, at first I thought digital distribution was a terrible idea, but it does add to the portability of the system. You're not going to be carrying around UMDs with you, and while you have nothing to collect, there is another huge advantage that you must consider when buying PSP games. Now, I actually prefer to buy my PSP games over the PlayStation Network now. And I'm willing to forego not having a collectible item due to the fact that since I have 2 PSPs, and this is a great reason to have 2 PSPs, especially if you have an older version, you'll find yourself probably preferring to purchase your games through the PlayStation Store because of the generous rights management that Sony allows us. As you can see, I have Gran Turismo running on both of my systems simultaneously, but I've only purchased 1 copy of the game. Through the downloadable service, you can run your game on up to 5 systems simultaneously. So if you have more than 1 PSP, say you have an older PSP, and then you purchase a PSP Go, you'll probably find yourself preferring to download your games from now on because you have 2 systems and you can play on both systems simultaneously. You can give this system to a friend and play on your PSP Go and have 2-player games with a friend who doesn't own their own PSP. That is a huge advantage and highly generous of Sony to allow us that kind of flexibility with licensing. So my final thoughts on the PSP Go is that the system is incredibly portable. Downloading games does have its advantages over purchasing a hard copy, and you're going to get more use out of the PSP Go and more enjoyment than you've ever gotten before. I highly recommend picking it up, so go get a Go.